I worked at Bluesfest. Here's what actually happened. In August 2024, the mood inside the Bluesfest office was dark. Not uncertain, but dark. Most of us knew money was tight. From what we understood, there had been conversations with potential investors. We watched those conversations fall through one by one. And then a different kind of conversation started. At least, as I understood it at the time, about whether this was it, whether the festival could even go ahead. Whether voluntary administration was one of the options being considered, which has been recently showed by Joel King and one of the things he recently released in regards to the notes there. Management made a decision it would be the last Bluesfest. And the marketing in me said, if it's the last one, we need to tell everyone. So that's what we did. The team was eating cake in the office the week before that, thinking, what are we doing? Celebrating the fact that we were just getting paid because things were that bleak. And then when we were told it was over, and when we told everyone, the response was absolutely wild. I spent 2 years as the head of marketing at Bluesfest. I left before the 2026 collapse, and one of the reasons I left is central to what I'm about to tell you. I'm still close with a lot of people on the team there. I talk to them regularly. I loved that job. I absolutely loved that job. And I loved those people. And before I go any further, I want to be clear about something. Everything I share in this video is either my direct personal experience, publicly reported information, or my honest understanding from people close to the situation. And I'll tell you which is which as we go. I'm not going to make allegations I can't support. I'm not going to characterize intent I can't verify. I have no access to Bluesfest financial records, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. What I can offer is the operational perspective of someone who was inside that organization, and context I believe is genuinely missing from this public conversation. If anything I say here is factually incorrect, I genuinely welcome the correction. My interest is getting this right, not in settling scores. Now, since the cancellation, there's been a lot of commentary. Recently, Joel King posted something I'd paraphrase as, Bluesfest said it was ending, then it wasn't, then it ended anyway. I'll link to his original post below so you can read it in full. It's a good line, but a very incomplete picture. And then, on March 20, Andrew McMillan from The Australian published a major investigation. 21 former employees, named sources, documentary evidence. I'll link to that too. It's essential reading if you want to get the full picture. My job in this video isn't to repeat what Andrew reported. It's to add the layer that even that investigation couldn't provide. What it felt like from inside the marketing and operations of this festival, and what I believe drove the outcome that left, unfortunately, 20,000 people out of pocket. So let's go. I need to be precise about what that moment was, because I think the part of this story that's been most completely misunderstood, the last ever announcement wasn't a boardroom strategy session about how to manufacture urgency. It wasn't a cynical play to spike ticket sales before shutting shop. It was a genuine decision made by an organization that had potential investors walk away one by one, that had considered voluntary administration as one of the options on the table, and had concluded the most honest path forward was to give the festival the ending it deserved, rather than let it collapse quietly. The team marketed it in that way because they believed it, I believed it, every person working on that campaign believed it. August 2024. Everyone remembers the Australian festival industry was in serious trouble. Splendour had gone, Groove and the Moo had folded, and Falls had lost its way a few years before that as well. The post-COVID audience that everyone assumed would come rushing back had changed their spending habits in ways no one had fully anticipated. Inside Bluesfest, things were tight. The teams were operating with genuine uncertainty about whether there would be another year. And the public, who had loved that festival for decades, responded in kind. Now, when we released the announcement, figures over those first few weeks were absolutely mind-boggling, like to the point where It legitimately matched the sales of the previous festivals before it in totality. Just in a few weeks. It was wild. Because that's what happened when genuine emotion meets genuine scarcity. People take action. The campaign worked. I'm proud of that. Because it wasn't a campaign. It was an actual farewell. And that was how we all knew it to be. Now, I want to share what I believe is the central context for understanding why everything unfolded the way it did. I need to be transparent about the basis for what I'm about to say. I do not have direct visibility into Bluesfest's financial position. What I'm sharing here is my honest understanding, informed by people close to the organisation, whose knowledge I have reason to trust. I'm presenting this as my best understanding, not as verified fact. The liquidation process will put actual numbers on the public record in time and give us the real picture financially. So let's wait for that. Now, from what I understand, 2025 was carrying the financial weight of more than just its own costs. There was the shortfall from the previous year that sat alongside the cost of running the 2025 event itself. That is my understanding from sources I trust. I cannot verify it with documents. Now, if that understanding is correct, the extraordinary sales response to the last ever announcement wasn't just covering 2025, it was potentially closing the gap that preceded it. From what I understand, when projections showed the festival was tracking towards covering both years, the financial case for continuing existed. And so the decision was made, let's do 2026. I'm not saying that decision was wrong, given what the numbers were apparently showing. It was arguably rational. Now, at a federal parliamentary inquiry in October 2024, Peter Noble explained his own thinking directly. The Australian reported his words from the inquiry transcript. He said, quote, "When we said this just might be the last one, all of a sudden we're selling more tickets than we have since 2022. You've got to do that to get people to get to the point where 80% sold out now. It's what you've got to do in marketing." And then, this is the line I think deserves the most attention. He asked, "Is that right in terms of people having to be coerced to spend money?" That's in the public record. That question, asked by the man who made the decision, is one I'll leave you to sit with. What I can speak to directly from my own experience is what happened next inside the organisation. Word filtered through to me that 2026 was happening, not through a team meeting, not through a structured briefing, through informal channels. And the team's instinct was immediate. We need to tell people. We're telling the public, right? We're telling them. The instruction to do that never came to me. I want to be careful about how I say this because I genuinely don't know whether that was a deliberate decision or something that got lost in the complexity of running a large organisation. What I know is that the instruction never reached me, and the team never got direction to have that conversation with the audience. There was no communication back to the people who had bought 2025 tickets on the basis of last ever that said, "Circumstances have changed. Thank you so much for the support. Here's why we're continuing." The 2026 announcement went out without that context. And the audience, they noticed. Reddit threads, Facebook comments, people saying, "I went last year because I thought it was the last one. Now I don't know what to believe. I'll wait and see." In festival economics, "I'll wait and see" is a death sentence for pre-sales, and that's where the decline started. In my view, and I want to be clear, this is my honest assessment, others may read it differently, that trust damage combined with the absence of clear communication when 2026 was announced hit pre-sales at the exact moment the festival needed strong, early velocity the most. The decision not to address it, from my direct experience, is one of the reasons I left. Now, the economics of running a festival. Running a festival at Bluesfest scale costs somewhere between $15 and $20 million before the gates open. Before a single ticket is scanned, that's how much it costs. It's a lot of money. Artist fees is your single biggest line item. International headline acts cost between $500 to over $1 million. across 50 to 80 artists, including travel, accommodation, backline, and crew. You're looking at $6 to $8 million just in artist costs alone. Infrastructure. You're building a temporary city in a paddock. Stages, lighting, sound, fencing, generators, roads, power, $3 to $4 million. Production. Audio crews, lighting, stage management, rigging, $1.5 to $2.5 million. Operations. Security, traffic, medics, site crew, $2 million. Marketing. I can speak to this one directly. Digital, outdoor, radio, PR, content, ticketing, platforms. It was anywhere between $800,000 and $1.5 million. Admin, insurance, permits, legal, agents, finance, another $1 to $2 million. That's around $15 to $20 million committed before you know whether the public will show up. According to the Australians' investigation, Bluesfest received $6 million in total federal and state government funding in recent years. Noble had sought $500,000 from Sound New South Wales last year and only received $250,000 only. With just one of the 3 government assessors supporting the application, public money was in this operation. The 2026 ticket was $686 plus booking fees for the 4 days. At $100,000, the maths works. At 70% capacity, it tightens dramatically. At 60% with a carry deficit underneath it, the clock runs out fast. The company reportedly had $28,000 in cash when liquidation began. That is not a sudden collapse, that is a slow bleed that reached its endpoint. The human cost is real and specific. The ABC reported a merchandise supplier in New South Wales who had already produced thousands of items for the festival. T-shirts, stubby coolers, caps, bags. She found out it was cancelled to the media on a Friday afternoon. She has $65,000 out of pocket because Bluesfest made a deposit. The stock belongs to the receivers. She can't sell it to recover her costs. That is what this looks like on the ground. For the 20,000 plus ticket holders now, classified as unsecured creditors, refunds are unlikely according to publicly reported advice. The most practical path is charged back directly through your bank. That's a private process between you and your financial institution, separate from the liquidation entirely. And I stress you all to try and take that initiative, to try and go through the chargeback process. I've seen many examples of it working for people, so good luck with that. I want to address something I've been deliberately careful about, the internal culture at Bluesfest. I had my own experience working there. I've described it in a LinkedIn post that it was very difficult. I've said my working relationship with Peter Noble was complicated. I've chosen not to go into detail, and I'm going to maintain that position. But I don't need to go into detail. On March 20, Andrew McMillan published an investigation in The Australian that spoke to 21 former employees spanning 3 decades, that named sources, photographic evidence. Noble's lawyers responded to the allegation. It is through serious journalism, and I'll link to it below, that we found out what it was like to work at Bluesfest. I found the accounts reported in that piece consistent with my own experience of the organisation's internal culture. And I'll leave it at that. I experienced it, you read it from other people, that's what it is. What I will add, because I think it's relevant to the full picture, is something the culture reporting doesn't quite capture. The people who loved Bluesfest most were the ones who built it. The crew members, the production team, the marketing people, the volunteers, the artists who came back year after year, not because they were paid the most, but because the festival meant something. Those people existed in the same organisation. They gave everything to an event that genuinely mattered, and they deserved better than what the last chapter of this story delivered. There's one more structural factor to cover that's almost been completely missed. Bluesfest built artist loyalty. Ben Harper, Michael Franti, Xavier Rudd, Trombone Shorty, John Butler, Tedeschi Trucks Band, these artists came back again and again because they genuinely loved playing there. The relationships were real, the crew was exceptional, the crowd actually listened. That's not marketing copy. I watched it, it was true. But here's the commercial tension embedded in that model. When your core audience has seen the same 20 artists 4 or 5 times across a decade, however much they love them, the urgency to return softens. They know the artist will come back. They know the vibe will be the same. They'll go eventually, maybe next year. Now let's add in the value equation. In the early 2010s, the 5-day festival, roughly 90 artists, $300 a ticket, about $3.30 per artist on the lineup. In 2020-24, the 4-day festival, roughly 75 artists, $570 a ticket, about $7.60 per artist. 2026, before it collapsed, was going to be the smallest lineup in the festival's modern history. Approximately 50 to 60 artists at $700 a ticket, that's approaching $13 per artist on the lineup, nearly 4 times what it was 15 years ago. Now that's way past inflation. The music wasn't worse. Some of the 2026 lineup was genuinely exciting. A Split Enz reunion, Earth, Wind & Fire, Erykah Badu, and for me, Parkway Drive, headlining as a deliberate play to try and bring in a younger demographic. And Parkway Drive, local heroes, said that the cancellation was heartbreaking. They were coming home to Byron Bay, and that was real. But a core audience watching the lineup slowly contract while the price kept on climbing, the hesitation was real and rational, and let's not forget the cost of living. This is a smaller festival at a high price, announced with the honest conversation that the audience really deserved. That combination doesn't recover easily. In my view, it may not have been recoverable at all. I want to say something clearly because I think it matters. Whatever else is true about Peter Noble and the Australians' investigation covers a great deal. He, along with other people, built Bluesfest from a 6,000 person blues event in the 90s into one of Australia's most awarded festivals. 36 years, over 1,000 artists, more than 1 million attendees, tens of millions in tourism revenue for the Northern Rivers. That is undeniable. It's also genuine, significant, hard-won achievement. And I mean that. It is amazing what had happened with that festival. Personally, I had a difficult working relationship with him. That's a story for another day and not one I'm telling here. I don't think it adds anything useful to this conversation. And I'm conscious that my experience of one working relationship doesn't define a person of their contribution. What I will say is this. The people who built that festival every year, the operations crew, the production crew team, the booking people, the marketing team, all of the amazing volunteers, to the people who were eating cake with me in August 2024. We meant every word of that campaign that we're about to run. Those people gave everything to that event. They deserve to be part of a communication decision that made trust they'd built with that audience. In my experience, and I'm careful to say this, in my experience, not a statement of fact about anyone's intentions, but the absence of that communication about 2026 returning was consequential. I genuinely don't know whether different decisions could have saved Bluesfest. The industry environment was and is brutal. The cost pressures are real. Those things were true regardless of anything else. What I do know is that the audience that loved the festival deserved honesty, and the team that built it deserved to be ones delivering it. Looking forward, senior music industry figures are now publicly raising concerns about a crisis of consumer confidence in Australian live music. Not just festivals, but ticketed events broadly. The fear isn't that Bluesfest is an isolated collapse. The fear is that it's a signal. We've already seen it with other festivals. Now, I'd love to hear from two groups of people. If you were someone who was a genuine Bluesfest fan, someone who went all the time, a volunteer, a vendor, or an artist, I want to know when it started to feel different to you. Because I don't think the end of Bluesfest happened in March 2026. I think people felt it changing before that. I remember going in 2019, it was an epic event. And if you work in the Australian festival or live music industry and you want to talk honestly about what's happening, the economics, the trust problem, the cost explosion, I'd genuinely love to have that conversation in the comments as well. The industry needs people who are willing to say true things about it, not just condolences. Bluesfest didn't fail because of one bad decision. It failed because a multi-year financial squeeze, a changing audience, a fragile industry environment, and a communication failure all arrived at the same time, and the margin for error had already disappeared. The team that built it, the people who ate cake in August and meant every word of the campaign they launched, deserve better than this ending. So did the 20,000 ticket holders waiting to find out if they'll ever see their money again. So did that merchandise supplier sitting on stock she can't sell now. So did Parkway Drive coming home to Byron Bay, the first time in a long time. 36 years, over 1,000 artists, more than 1 million people. That's worth more than a 3-line hot take. Thanks for watching. That's the story of Bluesfest from my perspective. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully it gave some greater insight to what happened. Thanks for watching. I'll see you around.